Microsoft appears to be in the rebranding business lately. They have been firing people from departments, removing entire studios from their rosters, redistributing employees across the space, and apparently removing their diversity, equity, and inclusion departments as a whole. But I don't really believe that they're giving up on DEI. I believe that they know exactly how to rebrand, and that is something that they are doing. In many ways, I feel that they've already succeeded, and the Halo rebranding today puts a spotlight on that reality. You may recall this story from the New York Post back in July. Microsoft reportedly fires DEI team, becoming latest company to ditch woke policy, and we will touch upon this in the video a little bit later. But the reason that I bring this up is to help people understand that Microsoft has not given up on DEI. They are fully committed to pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion both in their workforces as well as their game developments. And nothing has changed, and we see further evidence of this when we take a look at Games Radar's reporting. Now, other news outlets are covering this as well, but I've chosen their story for this one. Newly rebranded Halo Studios kicks off the iconic FPS series' next era with multiple games in development. Chapter 1 B.R.I.D.G.E, Chapter 2 343 Industries, and that is per the studio head at Halo Studios. And it says that they have rebranded simply as Halo Studios to kickstart a new chapter. And what they're going to be doing in the future of Halo development is using the Unreal Engine 5, which is something that Epic Games uses for Fortnite. Now, I don't think that the game is going to look like Fortnite, but it's very clear that they want to take Halo in a new direction, and I think it's also important to stress because of that 343 Industries does not appear to be the same studio that it was a while back. They've had control of the Halo franchise for about 10 or so years now, but I don't think the same people are there anymore, just like I don't think the same people who used to work on Halo way back in the day work on Halo these days. And you find that to be very much the case when you actually watch their video on YouTube, in which they go into detail about the changes they're going to be making to Halo. And one of the first things that you see is this individual here, Melissa Boone, who identifies as a she, her, and is apparently the chief of staff at Halo Studios. I understand this whole thing to be as a huge rebranding of the franchise, and now I'm seeing a whole bunch of new faces in charge of this company. We will also discover as we read through all of this nonsense that these people don't really have a lot of video game experience, or at least they have experience in the video game industry on the business side of things. But when you see what these people have done in their careers, none of it is going to make sense. 343, again, has not really done anything special with the Halo franchise except for Halo Infinite, but even then they dropped the ball, both in terms of development and in the lack of story. And then some of the LGBT stuff that they promoted later on, which has completely turned off a huge chunk of players. But yes, this individual was making the rounds on social media, and you're not going to be surprised when you see why this person was making the rounds. So if you take a look at their LinkedIn page, you might see something that will instantly set off a red flag in your brain. That is right, the LGBTQ plus rainbow flag sitting behind her. And this is supposedly a professional account. This is Melissa Boone, she, her, chief of staff, Halo Studios. So this is confirmation, as per the video, as per here, that this person is in charge of the staff at Halo Studios, which means that she is responsible for hiring and firing staff that she feels meet the qualifications required to develop games at Halo Studios. It says, "Hi, currently I'm the chief of staff at Halo Studios, the stewards of the Halo franchise. My role is to ensure the smooth running of our studio. It includes a little bit of everything. I'm a problem solver, a process builder, strategic thinker, an executor, an integrator, a communicator, and an advisor." Basically, this is the best job ever for someone with a lot of interests who likes to stay busy and also possesses a healthy passion for military science fiction games and lore. Very fascinating. And the reason it's fascinating is because of the aforementioned work history. This person has worked at Microsoft for about 9 years or so, chief of staff Halo Studios for about a year now, but before that she was a research manager and a user researcher. And already people are probably wondering, well, what does that have to do with developing a Halo video game? Well, I don't know, you tell me. She's on camera here being interviewed about Halo Studios, right? So what is it that she has to do with the development of this video game? It doesn't really appear necessary to put someone like this, who probably works more behind the scenes than anything, at the front of this thing. But when you start to dig a little bit more, it makes a little bit more sense. Elizabeth Van Wyck, and this person is the chief operating officer at Halo Studios. Well, what is it that's weird about her? She's just a chief operating officer. Well, when I first saw it, I didn't think much of it either until I read this post from Minimal Effort Gaming. He says that many people are rightfully worried about the chief of staff at Halo Studios, Melissa Boone, and her obvious ideologically driven activism activism. And I imagine that what he means by that is what is on her LinkedIn page at the very top. That huge rainbow flag and the she-her stuff that we see so many executives parroting these days, and they parrot it so much to the point where that they eventually attack gamers if they're pushed back against hard enough. Sometimes they'll just do it for no reason, but I'm seeing a lot of the same patterns here. But what Minimal Effort Gaming talks about is that it's not just the chief of staff who are problematic in this situation, it is also a couple of other individuals who have had a history in pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion in Microsoft for years, and now it appears that they are directly engaged in the development of this video game. Minimal Effort says right here, Casey Wu attending a panel back in 2019 called Open World's Women and Diversity in Gaming. The name is pretty self-explanatory, but in the description they actually push the bogus claim that 45% of gamers are women, and I'm not exactly sure where they get those numbers, but it does show that Casey Wu was at this event. Casey Wu has participated in an event, Open World's Women in Diversity in Gaming, on July 24th, 2019. So great find, Minimal Effort Gaming. And this took place in San Francisco, California, United States, North America. Not surprised. And this was the description. The game development industry struggles with workplace diversity. On July 24th, 4 female game developers discuss their experiences. And I imagine it has a lot to do with the sexist workplace in which women are suppressed from getting the positions in their workforce that they want, where they are gate-kept from developing video games or working in high positions of power. And what I see here is employees who push for diversity, equity, and inclusion on Microsoft's behalf. They've been doing this for the company for a long time. Even the chief operating officer, which you will see right here. Another cause for concern is C.O.O. Elizabeth Van Wyck. She, like Melissa and Casey, has been a Microsoft employee for many years and also sat on a panel for the activist group D.E.I. So these ladies have been activists for a while, and these activists are now in charge of this studio. These people are all activists and care nothing for Halo or the games industry as a whole. And when you pull up this image that he provided, this is from D.E.I., which I will touch upon momentarily, in which they say, "Yesterday we hosted our first D.E.I. Paving the Path for Women in Esports event. We had so many great folks attending from industry and university, and a truly inspiring set of speakers, still feeling energized by the outpouring of mutual support." So these women are activists within Microsoft who go and they attend these events and give speeches, not just to women in the industry, but also women attending universities. So they speak to colleges, they speak at events, pushing for D.E.I. because that's the overall goal of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's to even the playing field and to make sure that less and less white people work at these facilities and more people of color, more women work at these facilities. It's all about eliminating the idea of a white male for some reason. You have to tear down one race to prop up another, tear down one sex to prop up another. It's the same old spiel that we've seen time and time again, and it's rearing its face once more, yet in a different way, through individuals that work at Microsoft who now helm Halo Studios, and they're now developing future Master Chief games. So can you tell where Halo is headed and where it's been headed for a while now? There are many signs that point to the negative direction that Halo is going, and these women who are in charge of the studio clearly have another agenda in mind. Again, what does this have to do with video games? Well, not very much. And I would apply that same question to the inclusion of this huge rainbow flag background. I mean, what does this have to do with being the chief of staff at Halo Studios or working at Microsoft? It's because this person is an ideologue, someone who Microsoft sees as useful for improving and progressing their agenda. What is their agenda? Well, look no further than their Global Diversity and Inclusion Annual Report from 2023. Their whole purpose for this entire thing is to increase the amount of diverse individuals in their workforces, which includes places like Halo Studios. We are seeing the results of their agenda push. They have actually succeeded in implementing these D.E.I. hires into these positions of power. These people who go on these women empowerment rampages at events, giving speeches to college students to push for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. Says representation data indicates how particular groups are represented in terms of their percentage of the workforce as a whole, the population, race, and ethnicity categories. And what's funny is that this came out at around the October or November timeframe, so we're actually within the window to receive the 2024 Global Diversity and Inclusion Report. They've been implementing and discussing this kind of thing for a while. And I did mention that we were going to take a look at D.E.I., so of course I'm going to be taking a look at D.E.I.'s official page. Right here, D.E.I. advocates for diversity and inclusion in gaming. Welcome anybody, include everybody, play fair. A nonprofit organization that fosters change and empowers the champions making a difference in esports, competitive gaming, and live streaming. Well, how is it that you do that? Well, Inclusion 101, of course. Learn how to build a diverse and inclusive gaming group. Our materials are designed to help both players and organizers develop practical skills in allyship, bystander intervention, whatever that means, and media representation, and more. It says through our innovative and impactful programs, we are working to build a more inclusive and accessible world for all gamers. And when you scroll to the bottom, we've got even more of it. Our goal is to make substantial change, diversity, by increasing the percentage of marginalized people represented and participating in competitive gaming. This is a big Microsoft push, a big DEI push. Inclusion by improving the quality of meaningful participation in gaming spaces for members of marginalized groups. Amazing. And then equity by creating and providing new opportunities and resources for marginalized gamers, casters, and streamers. You know, they always say that gamers are just being bigots when they push against this stuff, but this is a movement that Microsoft has supported, and they are only now rebranding and continuing to push this nonsense. It's just not in the way that people expected, and you really don't need gaming consultancy agencies for Microsoft anymore. They don't even need their DEI department anymore. Why would they when they have people like this in charge? When you have the supposed C.O.O. herself attending women's empowerment events in which she pushes for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then has people like this work directly under her. Again, this person works directly under the C.O.O., who, as I mentioned, loves female empowerment events. Elizabeth Van Wyck, general manager and C.O.O. of Halo franchise at Microsoft, and her work history interested me as well. 10 years at Microsoft, a general manager, a head of business operations and community engagement, head of esports. She was the head of esports at one point, and she appears to be an ideologue like the rest. Now, she doesn't have a huge rainbow flag as her banner in the background, but she has made no secret as to what she's trying to do in this industry. Now, again, what do these things have to do with developing a Halo video game? Well, I don't know, but Microsoft apparently feels that these corporate ladies who push diversity, equity, and inclusion should be the face of the newly rebranded Halo franchise that is apparently going to take on Unreal Engine 5 and make Halo look and play differently from here on out. Now, is that a good thing? I mean, it potentially could be, but I don't know why people would put faith in Microsoft when they've made it very clear, even through very specific tools asking to make women characters in video games purposefully ugly. I just don't know why people would even give Microsoft a chance at this point. And it really is unfortunate because I love Halo and have been playing Halo for as long as I can remember. I would love nothing more than to be extremely supportive of this huge developmental milestone that they have achieved here. But these ladies here are the face of Microsoft, and their history shows that they have a bias against men, and they believe that women are mistreated in the gaming industry and need to be helped to get a step ahead in the game. But even more than that, they parrot these ideas on their front pages, and they announce it to the world as to why they do it. And these views align with Microsoft's push of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is really just a rebranding of something Kirsch touched upon a while back, which is now starting to make more of an impact in social media than it has before. Social impact: B.R.I.G.E, benchmarking race inclusion and diversity in global engagement. What is B.R.I.G.E? Well, B.R.I.G.E stands for benchmarking race inclusion and diversity in global engagement. B.R.I.G.E is an institutional survey that explores diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility metrics, structures, and practices at the organizational level across U.S. registered orgs in the international development and humanitarian sectors. So B.R.I.G.E is a survey that determines how much ESG you are parroting in your game development or in your workspaces at the organizational level down to the developmental level. They take these ESG tests and they determine whether they deserve ESG money or not. It says, why was it developed? For many organizations in the United States, attention to DEI increased exponentially after the murder of George Floyd in the summer of 2020 and the massive racial justice mobilization that followed in response. So much of this DEI amplification over the past 4 4 or so years has been in response to George Floyd. So it's been amplified because of that movement due to his death. And things have only gotten worse since then. So race is a huge motivator, a huge push against white people, brainwashing and propaganda tactics in order to cause division in the industry, guilt trip people into believing that they need to diversify their workforces completely in order to be accepted by the rest of society. It's just a bunch of nonsense that these companies have been pushing from the very top gleefully all the way down to the bottom. And the only way that they change is by rebranding. They don't really give up on pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion. They simply rebrand when people either catch on or when the movement doesn't work under its current moniker. All they do is rebrand, and then they say, well, what can we do better next year? How can we implement this thing further next time? And it appears that they have succeeded with Halo Studios because you've got a bunch of ideologues in leadership positions. So their diversity, equity, and inclusion push, their metrics and their implementations and restructuring and rebranding and studio redistribution over the past year or so has given them results. Now we are seeing results of their rebranding because these ladies haven't been working for 343 Industries for long. They've maybe been working for Microsoft for around a decade, and then they've been pushed down into lower departments to work at specific studios over maybe like the last year or maybe the 6 or 7 months following this day, but not for very long. I mean, you can see signs from these photos alone that this is too late. I mean, here's the C.O.O. sitting right here at this female empowerment event talking about how many more women need to be involved in gaming now. It's just the craziest thing that she used to be the head of esports, and now she's in charge of Halo. I mean, it's just like, where's the Halo development in between any of these 2 points here that makes these people so deserving of being in this position? Because I don't think that game development is at the forefront of these people's minds right now. That's why I think that these people are working in these positions. Here's Peter Zetterberg, who is the head of Xbox Game Camp, and look at some of the employees that he has. Christopher Douglas, who is a business program manager at Xbox Game Camp, but his title is also diversity and inclusion lead. They don't need departments. They don't need gaming consultancy agencies. They have people who have these ideas embedded into their brains, and they are pushing those ideas out in their workforces. What in the world is going to happen to Halo? I'm not sure, but there are signs. I mean, if you take a look at this post from Smash JT, he just brought up a few photos to give people an idea. Halo Studios, here's their new rebranding, and then you've got this delightful gem in which Halo Infinite was advertising for people to buy skins that had a bunch of rainbow flag stuff on it. Absolutely incredible, and this is after Halo was already starting to decline in players, by the way. So it's not like they've exactly hidden their agenda in pushing for LGBTQ plus stuff, but now it looks like they're headed in an even more committed direction as far as LGBTQ. I mean, here you go. Got the rainbow flag here, and then someone who really loves the rainbow flag here, and they're in charge of hiring and firing people at this studio. So for those of you in the comments, how probable do you think it is that this person will hire based on merit and not based on the way that they think and act and behave? Let me know what you think, because when I take a look at this stuff, all I see is someone who parrots these ideas, prioritizes them over game development, and makes sure that everybody in their workforce believes what they believe, or else they're gone. I could be wrong about that, but how often does that happen these days? Quite often. And then many of these people in these executive positions have expressed themselves online in an insane manner, to the point where people start questioning when these people get into these positions and why they deserve it, when they are worried that their ideas may take priority over other important things like fun and gameplay. Again, let's go back to that New York Post article. Microsoft reportedly fires D.E.I team. Well, they reportedly fired them. They reportedly got rid of them, but I don't see any new changes. We've got Christopher Douglas, Elizabeth Van Wyck. We've got all of these ideologues, these D.E.I pushers in these positions of power at this company. I don't even recognize these people from 343 Industries or from Bungie for that matter. In fact, it looks like everybody at 343 Industries has been completely replaced. But I think at this point, with everything going on with Microsoft and Sony and everything higher up that's coming down the pipeline, it's a reasonable call for skepticism, at least in my view, to take a look at these companies and these games and where they're headed and to question them. Now, not every gaming consultancy agent or D.E.I ideologue is going to reflect in the game's development. There's a good chance that the game could be absolutely incredible and have nothing D.E.I in it. But if history proves to be correct, removing your D.E.I department from the equation does not mean that you're getting rid of D.E.I. Just like rebranding from 343 Industries to Halo Studios does not count as a new direction, it just counts as a rebranding. But how effective that rebranding proves to be D.E.I is what I will be taking a look at for the foreseeable future. And that is all I've got for you guys in this video today. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you haven't had the chance to like it and share it with your friends, that would be awesome. And hey, if you're feeling ultra spicy, consider subscribing to my channel so that you're always up to date on what kind of thing I've got going on. I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Later. Meow meow.